I'm John Glynn. If you watched the first instalment of this video, you will know how we did the selections for these flowers, the red flowers on the right hand picture here, and you can see in the layers palette the original background picture and the layers I created and duplicated of the flower that I selected. What we're going to do now is move these flowers from one picture to another picture. So by highlighting a particular layer, you can see that I now have the bounding box around this photograph that I've selected, and if I have the move tool on in the toolbar on the left hand side, the move tool is activated, I can go back to this photograph that I took or had originally of the red flower, and I've made my selection, and I can move it about the picture. I can now move this selection from this photograph into another photograph by just dragging and dropping, and you'll see that when I move to the second photograph I have a little square with the plus sign in it. When I let go of my left mouse key, the photograph is now transferred, or copied rather, from one photograph to another. It's not actually transferred. You can see the original photograph still has the original flower, and if I were to click on it, you'll see that the layers are still all here, background and 3 layers above. But now that I go to the new photograph, you can now see that I've got a background and a single layer. So this new photograph here that I've just put in, this new image of the red flower, is in its own layer automatically. I don't need to create a layer, it already is a layer. It will make its own layer. Okay, so now it's here. I can move it about over this new photograph, and I could go back to the original photograph and drag another picture in, another flower. Now we have 2 of them, and you can see that one of them is on top of the other one, and if you look at the layers palette on the right hand side here, that you will now see that I have a background layer, which is the blue flower, the original little copy that I dragged in, here it is, and the new copy that I just dragged in as well with the new layer, layer copy 2, and there that one is. Okay, now I'm going to go and make this picture bigger. Oh, made it a bit too big. I want to keep some stuff so that you can see what I'm doing. I'll just play around here for a second to get my sizes right. Okay, let's just get rid of stuff that I want to do. There we are, that's what I wanted all along. Okay, so now we have my photographs here, and I've got my 2 new little red flowers on a new photograph, but I would like to actually put one of these flowers behind this blue flower. So how am I going to do that? Well, this is quite a complicated one to do, but I'm going to have a bash, and it is quite complicated because there's lots of little fiddly bits. I should have chosen a lot simpler photograph, but in my wisdom I didn't. So here goes. Zooming in does help. Okay, so we can start saying, right, let's make selections and zoom in, and I'm going to once again use the quick selection tool in the toolbox on the left hand side and take my cursor over to blue flower, and I get a round brush, hold down the left mouse key, and I can drag, and I can do a fairly quick selection of the main flowers. There we have it. I need to make sure I'm in the right layer. I forgot to mention that actually. Always a good thing to make sure you're on the right layer, and I've chosen the background layer because that's what I'm going to try and copy. Now it's actually over copied it because it's all a bit too similar. Let's just go in, and you can see that it over copies, so it's taken up the background as well. So the shades of grey in this picture are very, very similar. Let's just reduce them. This is, remember, on the background, not on the actual little red flowers, but on the actual original picture, which is the blue flowers. And just slowly rebuild that selection. I'll just work my way around, selecting the flowers, the blue flower as much as I possibly can, and if I can I'll select a little bit of these peaky bits as well, and if I spent a lot of time on it I would be a lot more accurate, and I would have chosen a different plant to have done, but well, what the hell, life isn't meant to be simple. Why make it simple when you can add complications to it? So I've done a very basic selection of that bunch of flowers there, and what I'm going to do now is as I did before, go up to my layer palette, layer option rather, not the layer palette but the layer option in the top toolbar, and I'm going to click down to new and layer via copy. When I do that, as before, the cursor will vanish, but I now have a new layer. Because I have a new layer and it is below the other layers, when I click on these options, I'll go to my move tool, let's click on the move tool, I go to these options, I can pull these over and you can see that the flower, the red flower, is still on top of the blue flower. But if I drag the bottom layer up, look what happens on the left hand side in the main photograph. Now the blue photograph, or the blue flower, is now on top of the red flower. Go back down, there we have it again, drag it back up again. So what I can do is hide things behind one picture and another picture. Now obviously if I went to the blue flower and selected it, I get a bounding box. I can move it and I get two of the same. Okay, so it's just the same as the flower, but by leaving it in place, just the same as the red flower, but leaving it in place means that if this is at the very top, this layer 1 is at the very top of the little blue flower, I'll give it a name, I'll just type it and put in blue flower. There we have it. It's now got the word blue flower in there because you just type in the name you want to give it. I can now move the other flowers behind it. So I can start putting things behind other things in a photograph. Now generally speaking, if you're going to go and do that, if you're going to put something behind a photograph, it's ideally that it's associated with it in some shape or form, and the lighting and the composition and all the rest of it will be of similar look. So just be aware that it's okay to hide things behind different parts of your picture, like a person, from one photograph into another photograph, but they do have to have the same lighting, they do need to look like they were taken on the same day, etc. Otherwise it will look odd. However, if you wish to have a go, then all you're doing again in this option is making a selection, making a new layer, so it's a layer and a layer via copy. And the reason we do it via a copy is because if you do it via a cut, it will remove the picture from the original image, and literally you'll just have a hole in your photograph. So there's going to be a layer via copy, leaves the original picture as it was. It gives you a copy of your selection. That selection can be moved to another photograph as well as within the same photograph, and you can then do these extra layers if you wish and hide things between layers. And you can do this of course in the original photograph as well. There's no particular reason why it has to be done in a different photograph. All of these techniques can be used in the original photograph in the same way as you're doing here. And just as with the original photograph, if I hold down my shift key in this particular Photoshop option I've got, I can resize the picture, I can move it around just as I could do in the other picture that I did earlier, and I can make it bigger, I can turn it and so on. So it becomes a separate image in its own right. Okay, have a look and see how you get on doing that, and in the and just sort of have a play with what you can do in Photoshop Elements or in any other version of Photoshop that you might have. Okay, thank you for watching.